If they had a Happy Meal at McDonald's for this movie, it would be called a McShooketh. Friends from all factions, get ready for an adult breakdown of ParaNorman. Now, the movie takes place in a place called Blythe Hollow, Massachusetts. And not only is Blythe Hollow giving sundown town realness, but it's also giving Salem witch hunt realness. So keep in mind, this is not a place where marginalized groups will feel safe off history alone. But then we're introduced to our protagonist, Norman. So when we first meet Norman, he looks like a typical child that likes horror films and gore and zombies. He's sitting there watching the movie with his grandma, and his grandma didn't. And she talking about she cold and go tell his daddy to turn up the AC. Now, we have all been that child that's been like, damn, this bitch always cold, but she got on for 6 layers. You would have thought that Norman asked for McDonald's when his mama just cooked. They went off. And his daddy is like, how many times I gotta tell you, your grandma is dead. Why are you still talking to her? And Norman responds, because she talks to me back. And that's when, as a viewer, you think back to this clip and you say, she was kind of translucent. Norman is like, I'm getting the fuck out of here because I know what I saw. And what I saw was my grandma telling me to tell y'all to turn the goddamn heat up. So on his way to school, we're seeing that Norman is speaking to and conversing with things and people that the viewers cannot see. But you know who he's not talking to? Actual people. And I kind of stand. But once they change the perspective of the viewer, we are now seeing the green-hued people that Norman is seeing, which are the dead folks that he has been talking to the whole time on his way to school. So now we know our friend ain't lying. So Norman finally gets to school, and his first class is drama. His teacher is one of them people that peaked in high school because she got a standing ovation as Juliet during Romeo and Juliet, and she never forgot that, and she never did anything else but that. So while they're rehearsing for their little play, Norman starts seeing premonitions and seeing faces of people that look like they are from the Pilgrim times. And he snaps out of it and he's like, what the hell was that? This is when we find out that the play that they're doing is a story of the witch trials that happened in Blythe Hollow over 300 years ago. They say that there was a person that got hung for being a witch, and the Puritans at that time said that the person said, I'm gonna be back for you hoes, and all of y'all are gonna come back as zombies because of me, period. So this when it get juicy. During the argument in the opening scene, we hear the dad tell the mom, he not about to be like your weird ass uncle. And the mom says to him, my uncle doesn't even know what Norman looks like. Not only does this man know what Norman looks like, but he been tracking him and following our friend for years. And it looks like time is about to run out on this man. So he's starting to get a little bit desperate. So as Norman is on his way from school, who does he see but Uncle Pendergrass' weird ass? And Uncle Pendergrass is like, look, I know your family don't fuck with me like that, but we got some business to take care of. So is the uncle weird? Yes. Does he look like we need to call Chris Hansen? Yes. But he tells Norman, I need you to complete this ritual for me because I feel like I'm about to die. And if I die, nobody will be able to complete this ritual and the witch will be able to come back as a spirit and destroy our town. Enter my favorite character, Neil. Now, Neil gets Uncle Pendergrass to leave him alone and says, Norman, come on and walk home with me. Now, Neil and Norman quickly become friends when Neil does not judge Norman for seeing Neil's recently deceased dog in his backyard. And Neil just kind of goes with it. He's like, hey, I'm weird too. I'm bullied too. Fuck it, we ball. Unfortunately for Norman, during the play, he has a premonition the same way he did during practice. And during this premonition, he is running through the forest away from the Puritans who are trying to kill him. And this tree stops him in his path and tells him the dead are coming. And this child screams it at the top of his lungs at the actual play. And his parents are mortified and they ground him. And while on punishment, Uncle Pendergrass' ass dies. And so Norman is like, what am I supposed to do now? He's like, you need to go to my house and get that book out of my dead hands. And he literally has to pry this book out of his dead cold hands. So now Norman is on his way to the forest to go read this book to the witch so she don't destroy his town. His family looking for him because he on punishment for embarrassing them at the play. And his sister go to his best friend Neil's house to go and say, hey, have you seen him? So Neil brother and his sister is going out to look for him now. Norman reaches this area and he thinks that this is where he has to read the book. So he starts to read. It obviously does not work because the witch is pissed, sends a lightning bolt down to that area, and honey, our good sis cracks open them graves and the zombies start crawling on out. So as they're running from the zombies, they are reunited with their older siblings and friends. And they are not the only people seeing the witch in the sky and the zombies coming out the ground because this town has turned into Charlottesville, Virginia. The girls have their tiki torches, their weapons. Somebody just has a tennis racket up here. Like, girl, what are you gonna do with that? In the car, they call the smartest girl in the class. Her name is Salma, and Salma tells them, y'all a bunch of fucking idiots because anybody who was hung is not going to have a grave. They're going to have unmarked stones, and those stones can be found in town hall. So now they're like, damn, we got to go to town hall. So in town hall, they're looking for the records. It's just really not working out. So Norman gets frustrated and he's like, you know what? I got y'all into this. I'm just going to climb up to the roof and scream this story at this witch in the sky. So he climbs up to the top of this building and he starts to read out of the book. And when I tell you this witch is cackling at him in his face, and she's done. She's like, I don't want to talk anymore. And she yeets him into the past. And y'all, it gets dark. We see the judge calling for execution of a person, and Norman hears somebody crying, and he turns around. Bro, why is it a little girl? The way I would have came back too. Because as an 11-year-old, I was wretched as hell. And I probably also would have been like, oh, y'all think it's funny to kill a child? Well, bitch, we can get hilarious. In 300 years, y'all will come back as zombies. Fuck with me. You know I got it. So once Norman comes out of the premonition and realizes this was somebody his age that they killed, he is livid. And he's like, y'all can help yourself. So the judge is like, look, I know we were wrong and we just want to make it right. So they load the car up with the zombie and he takes them to the unmarked grave. Now the witch almost took him out, but Norman got in there. And when he get in there, he meets the witch and she has fucking had it with this town. She whoops Norman's ass for what feels like 25 straight minutes. But then Norman starts to realize hurt people, and that's why she acting like this. After that last slap, I probably would have had to fight back, but Norman continues to kill her with kindness and holds her hand until she remembers who she actually is. And who she was Agatha Pendergrass. Where do you remember that last name from? Uncle Pendergrass, the crazy man that died. This is his distant relative, so this means that Aggie is actually Norman's like 11th cousin. And Aggie just cannot understand why Norman would be so kind to people who are rude to him. And he says because they're dumb and they don't know any better and you have to be the one that's kind. Oh! She finally trusts Norman. She lays her head on his shoulder and her soul is released. And I sobbed. After her soul is released, they take us back to the town and they show us the 6 jurors who were actually the villains in the movie. These are the people who decided to convict a child and murder her. And it closes with his dad finally acknowledging that his mama is really there. Oh!